when President Zelenskyy of Ukraine was invited as a guest only for Donald Trump and Vance to launder Russian propaganda to attack Zelenskyy in the Oval Office. Actions, not just words. Britain stands with Ukraine today and always. That is how you respond to the despicable behavior of Donald Trump and J.D. Vance in the Oval Office and to try to break Zelenskyy. Zelenskyy wouldn't break. Zelenskyy then went to the United Kingdom, where he met with United Kingdom's Prime Minister Keir Starmer, who showed what a state visit is actually supposed to look like.
Two world leaders met with Zelenskyy recently. One demanded gratitude and offered nothing. The other showed up with $3.3 billion and thousands of missiles. Guess which one wasn't Trump? This isn't just another Trump looks dumb story. This is about how Europe is finally stepping up while America's potential next commander-in-chief is busy demanding thank you cards from a war-torn country. Before we move on, I'd like to ask you a small favor. If you appreciate this content, please take a second to like this video and subscribe to the channel. Over 98% of you watch the videos without subscribing. It costs you nothing, but it makes a huge difference to us. So, did you click the subscribe button? Great, thank you so much. Now, back to the video.
How leaders in democracies are supposed to treat other leaders of democracies who are supposed to be our allies. Take a look at this video Keir Starmer posted. So at this meeting, the UK and Ukraine signed a $3.3 billion security deal. The money will be dispersed in the next days.
Remember when your 5-year-old cousin threw a fit because someone didn't say thank you for a birthday card? Well, that's basically what happened in the White House last week during what should have been a serious diplomatic meeting. Except the tantrum thrower wasn't a kid, it was the former president of the United States. The Oval Office meeting between Trump, his running mate J.D. Vance, and Ukrainian President Zelenskyy quickly devolved into what can only be described as a diplomatic disaster of epic proportions. Trump, who apparently thinks world leaders should bow and scrape before him, decided to publicly scold Zelenskyy for not showing enough appreciation. Imagine inviting someone whose country is being bombed daily to your house, then complaining they don't say thank you enough. That's some next level hosting skills right there. Trump sat there pouting like a kid who didn't get enough Halloween candy while telling Zelenskyy, "I hope you're going to be more appreciative this time." More appreciative of what exactly? The opportunity to be humiliated on international television, the empty promises, the lack of any actual commitment to help Ukraine. It's like demanding a thank you note for a gift you haven't actually given. Then there was J.D. Vance, who decided to play the role of Trump's loyal sidekick by delivering what can only be described as the world's most condescending lecture to Zelenskyy. Vance actually wagged his finger while telling the leader of a nation fighting for its survival that Ukraine needs to show more gratitude. This coming from a guy whose biggest battle recently was trying to explain why he once called Trump America's Hitler.
About Australia, we're talking about the world democracies coming together to support Zelenskyy even more now based on the traitorous and despicable behavior. We know they are needed ASAP. Europe is standing up. We're talking about the UK, we're talking about the EU, we're talking about the nations in the EU, we're talking about Canada, we're talking behavior by the Trump regime in the United States. Take a look at the moment this $3.3 billion security deal was inked.
Thank you very much. And that's our side of it. And in the next few days.
Talk about an awkward career pivot. But it gets worse. Trump, showing off his amazing grasp of world events, falsely claimed that Ukraine started the war. That's right. According to Trump's unique version of reality, Ukraine apparently invaded itself. He then went on to call Zelenskyy a dictator, which is a fascinating label to apply to a democratically elected president who, unlike some people we know, didn't try to overturn an election. The cherry on top of this diplomatic disaster Sunday, they canceled the signing of an economic agreement that was already prepared and ready to go. show. Imagine spending weeks preparing an important document, flying across the world to sign it, only to have the host throw a tantrum because you didn't compliment his tie or whatever. The international reaction was swift and brutal. Media outlets around the world were stunned by the spectacle. The Italian newspaper La Repubblica called it the biggest show ever presented on live TV, while Germany's Der Spiegel described it as a backstabbing TV show. Usually when international media uses terms like backstabbing and show, they're reviewing a Netflix drama, not an actual diplomatic meeting with real-world consequences. What this embarrassing episode really demonstrated is that Trump fundamentally misunderstands what leadership actually is. True leadership isn't about demanding praise and gratitude. It's about offering solutions, taking action, and showing respect. Trump treated an official presidential meeting like it was an episode of The Apprentice, where everyone has to tell him how amazing and brilliant he is or risk getting fired. Speaking of taking action versus demanding praise, Keir Starmer just made Trump look like a toddler having a meltdown in the candy aisle. While the orange turd was busy fishing for compliments in the Oval Office, the British PM was rolling up his sleeves and getting down to actual business with Zelenskyy. What a difference an ocean makes. When Zelenskyy arrived at 10 Downing Street, he wasn't greeted with wagging fingers and childish demands for gratitude. Instead, he walked into a completely different atmosphere. One where leaders actually understand what leadership means. No tantrums, no reality TV drama, just two adults having a grown-up conversation about saving a country from invasion. Starmer didn't waste time with the performative nonsense we saw in Washington. Instead, he immediately recognized what Ukraine actually needed: help, not a lecture. And while Trump was busy getting his feelings hurt because Zelenskyy wasn't kissing his ring, Starmer was signing a historic $3.3 billion security deal. That's billion with a B, folks. And the best part, this isn't some vague, maybe someday promise like Trump loves to make. The UK is sending this aid in the next few days. Immediate assistance when Ukraine needs it most. But wait, it gets better. The UK is also throwing in 5,000 air defense missiles through 1.6 billion pounds in export financing. You know, actual weapons that can protect actual people from actual bombs. Not thoughts and prayers, not demands for thank you notes. Real military hardware that makes a difference on the battlefield. And here's the chef's kiss to this whole situation. Starmer made it crystal clear that this money is coming from frozen Russian assets. As he put it, the one who started the war must be the one to pay. That's right, Putin is literally footing the bill for Ukraine's defense. Talk about poetic justice. While Trump was falsely accusing Ukraine of starting its own invasion, Starmer was making sure Russia pays for its aggression. Starmer didn't need to demand gratitude like some insecure middle school bully. When you actually do something helpful, gratitude comes naturally. Zelensky's response: "We are very happy that we have such strategic partners. No forced thank yous, no awkward moments, just genuine appreciation for genuine help." The contrast couldn't be more stark. Trump's approach: demand praise while offering nothing. Starmer's approach: offer substantial aid while demanding nothing. One is throwing a tantrum, the other is solving problems. One is all talk, the other is all action. The British PM summed up his philosophy perfectly with his key phrase: actions, not just words. It's almost like he was directly subtweeting Trump without ever mentioning his name. While America's former president was busy running his mouth, Britain's current prime minister was busy opening his checkbook. Now here's where Starmer really makes Trump look like an amateur. He's actually thought beyond his next social media rant. While Trump thinks ending a war is as simple as saying, "I'll do it in 24 hours," seriously, that's his entire strategy. Starmer has been quietly crafting a comprehensive battle plan that doesn't treat Ukraine like a disposable chess piece. Let me walk you through this 4-point masterpiece that poor Donnie's brain probably couldn't process if you gave him a week and a team of explainers with puppet shows. Point 1 of Starmer's plan is genius in its clarity. Put Ukraine in the strongest possible position now so that they can negotiate from a position of strength. This isn't just talk. It's backed by that hefty loan of 2.26 billion British pounds from frozen Russian assets. See the difference? Trump demands Ukraine's surrender while Starmer hands them actual leverage. One approach leads to peace, the other to submission. I'll let you guess which is which. For point 2, Starmer isn't messing around with Ukraine's sovereignty and security. He flat out stated, "We cannot allow a weak deal that allows Russia to breach with ease." Translation: no giving away chunks of Ukrainian territory to make Putin happy, which seems to be Trump's unspoken strategy. Starmer understands that a half-baked peace deal is just Russia's invitation to try again in a few years. The third part of Starmer's plan shows he's thinking long-term, not just about how to get a quick headline. He's committed to ensuring Ukraine has robust defensive capabilities to protect itself from future invasions. While Trump seems perfectly happy to abandon allies when they become inconvenient, Starmer is planning for Ukraine's security decades into the future. It's almost like he understands that international relations require more thought than a 5-minute phone call with Putin. But the fourth point might be the most impressive. Starmer is actually building a coalition of the willing among nations ready to guarantee and possibly provide troops to defend long-term peace in Ukraine. He's not just talking, he's already got a number of countries expressing interest. And here's where it gets real. Starmer plainly stated this coalition would involve preparing to deploy soldiers and aircraft if necessary. That's right, actual boots on the ground if needed, not just strongly worded tweets. What makes this even more striking is that Starmer specified they'll intensify planning now with real urgency. He's not waiting for permission or applause. He's moving forward while Trump is still figuring out how to spell Zelensky's name correctly. Starmer also made it clear that the UK, France, and other nations would work with Ukraine on a plan to stop the fighting, which would then be discussed with the United States. Notice how America gets consulted at the end there. That's what happens when you lose credibility on the world stage. You get demoted from leader to participant. When America gets demoted from leader to participant, something happens that our former president would find unimaginable. Other countries actually step up and lead without waiting for permission. The vacuum left by America's retreating leadership isn't staying empty for long, and European nations are filling it faster than Trump can say, "Nobody has been treated more unfairly than me." This isn't just about one meeting gone wrong or one security deal. We're witnessing a historic power shift that's been brewing for years but has now kicked into hyperdrive. While Donnie Diapers is busy demanding thank you notes, European leaders are getting down to business with serious defense commitments that would make Republican hawks blush. Take the Czech Prime Minister Petr Fiala, who didn't mince words when he said Europe faces a historic test and must increase arms spending to at least 3% of GDP. That's not just talk, it's a warning that if Europe doesn't step up, aggressors would dictate terms. Even Starmer, who hasn't exactly been known as a defense hawk, pledged to boost British military spending to 2.5% of GDP by 2027. These aren't small numbers we're talking about. This is serious money being committed, while America argues about whether Ukraine deserves basic respect. French President Emmanuel Macron, who's never been shy about calling for European independence, admitted something you rarely hear from politicians: they messed up. Europe should have woken up earlier, he confessed, calling for a more sovereign, united, and independent Europe. Macron even said something that would make Orange Turd's head explode, that it's legitimate for the US to focus on China and Asia instead of Europe. Imagine that, a world where America isn't expected to be everywhere at once. The coalition Starmer assembled wasn't just for show, bringing together Germany, Denmark, Italy, Netherlands, Poland, Spain, Canada, Finland, Sweden, the Czech Republic, and Romania, along with the Turkish Foreign Minister, NATO Secretary General, and EU leadership, sends a clear message. Europe isn't waiting for America's permission slip anymore. But here's where it gets really interesting. Remember when American military vessels could dock anywhere without question? Those days might be ending. Norwegian fuel company ALB Bunkers announced it would stop refueling American ships in Norway, citing Trump's humiliation of Zelenskyy as the reason. This wasn't just talk. They actually refused to refuel the USS Delaware, forcing it to turn around off Norway's coast. When was the last time you heard of an ally refusing basic services to American military vessels? That's the kind of real-world consequence that diplomatic temper tantrums create. Starmer, meanwhile, seems to understand something Trump never grasped, that European security directly affects his own country. One thing our history tells us, he stated, is that if there is conflict in Europe, it will wash up on our shores. It's a simple concept that somehow escapes Trump's understanding. Helping your neighbors isn't just charity, it's self-preservation. The irony here is almost too perfect. Trump campaigned on making America respected again, yet his behavior is accelerating America's declining influence. While he demands gratitude without giving anything in return, European nations are finally stepping up to take charge of their own security. party, exactly what American presidents have been asking them to do for decades. But instead of celebrating this newfound responsibility, Trump seems angry that they're doing it without kissing his ring first. So we've seen the tale of two leaders unfold right before our eyes. In one corner, Mr. Orange Tantrum demanding thank you cards like a grumpy toddler who didn't get enough validation at his birthday party. In the other corner, Starmer quietly writing actual checks without needing a parade thrown in his honor. The geopolitical chessboard is shifting before our eyes, folks. Europe isn't waiting around for America's permission slip anymore. They're grabbing their big boy pants and stepping up while Trump is busy complaining about ingratitude. The consequences? Real-time ally defections that even his spray tan can't cover up. History won't remember who said the prettiest thank you or threw the biggest fit. It'll remember who actually showed up with solutions when democracy was on the line. One guy demanding applause, another building alliances, one throwing a hissy fit, the other throwing resources at the problem. The choice between these leadership styles couldn't be more stark if it was written in Trump's Sharpie on a hurricane map.